Everybody, my name's Chris Kandaya. I'm the president of London School of Theology, and I'm delighted to be working with you a little bit through the book of Acts. The book of Acts is so full of energy and excitement. It's the story of the birth of the earliest church, and as you probably know from the beginning of Acts chapter 1, you've got this idea that in the former book that Luke wrote, Luke's Gospel, he says he began to tell you about the things that Jesus did amongst his people. And now in the book of Acts, the second book in Luke's little mini-series, he tells you what Jesus continues to do by the power of his Holy Spirit through the church. And we pick up the story today in Acts chapter 13 as Paul and Barnabas are in Antioch. Paul and Barnabas are in Antioch of Pisidia. And it's mainly a Jewish audience that Paul is speaking to, and he preaches the gospel with great power. And he makes it really clear that Christianity is not some kind of newfangled religion. It hasn't come out of nowhere. In fact, he goes back to the Old Testament scriptures, goes back to the story of Israel in slavery in Egypt, and works them through the calling of God for them to enter the promised land, to root out the Canaanites. And then he talks about them getting a king that ruled over them, and then kind of finally ends up with King David. And then he jumps and he says, actually, the king that was David was just a forerunner to Jesus. And he then makes the link on to the New Testament. It doesn't mean the rest of the bit between David and Jesus coming is irrelevant. It's a kind of summary of his sermon, just to give you a little bit of a flavour about where he was going. And what's really important to know here is, firstly, the Old Testament makes sense of the New Testament. So you can't really understand the New Testament unless you've got a basis in the Old Testament. So that's why it's great that the Soul Survivor group are working through both the Old Testament and the New Testament simultaneously. You need both bits of the book in order to understand the whole. But secondly, you can't really understand the Old Testament without the New Testament. Thanks to Jesus being the fulfillment of all the promises in the Old Testament, not just the specific kind of predictive prophecies that you get a few verses that tell you where he's going to be born or how he's going to die or what his death's going to mean. Actually written into the whole history, the big story, are big images and ideas that get fully reconciled in Jesus. So as a Christian, you read the Old Testament slightly differently. You read it through knowing that Jesus came into the world to fulfill all that the Old Testament had to bring. But you might also notice that as Paul preaches the gospel here to Jewish people of a Jewish faith, he sounds very different to when he preaches the gospel in other places, as we'll see later. And so he's very attentive to the needs and the background and the ideas of those that he's seeking to communicate the gospel with. And that's something really important for us to learn as we seek to help our friends and family come to know who Jesus is. We need to start with a lot of listening rather than jumping in and saying too much. We need to understand where people are coming from before we can help them understand who Jesus is and what he's done for them. So I'm going to enjoy working through Acts with you. Keep on going, and I'll pick up with you tomorrow.